Hello, everyone. Caren Glasser here, and I'm very, very happy to have this guest with me today on a very special episode of The Passion Point. His name is Benji Bruce, and Benji and I have known each other for a couple of years already, and this guy is quite the speaker, but not just a speaker. He's an illusionist, and he wows people on stage, and we're going to be talking a little bit about this great program that he is getting ready to launch. And, he speaks not just here in the United States. I booked him for a gig in Finland. He knocked their socks off. Well, hopefully it wasn't all their socks because I think it might have been cold there and that would have been a little too chilly. But they were just in awe of him. And who better to learn how to be a speaker and how to get yourself booked as a speaking gig from somebody who is one of those speakers that has actually done it and knows what he's talking about. So, Benji, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's I just pretty much just speak all the time, speak and perform, and only in the corporate markets. I only do the paid gigs, and it's pretty much just what I do, and I just love it.
So what sets you apart from all the other speakers out there? Because, I work with a lot of speakers, and it's always the same question. How do I get booked on the big stage? And not just that, how do I get paid? How do I get paid to speak? So what are some of the things that we're going to be learning from this program, this webinar that you're going to do?
Well, in just a second, I'm basically going to show the details of everything I do every single day to get booked on corporate stages. So companies like Remax, AAA, those are companies I've actually spoken for, been on stages for. So I'm going to show how I get those gigs, the simple process that I go through. And I realized a while ago I kind of didn't want to be average. So I just really focused down, and even though they tell you like, oh, you should join all these associations and things like that, I realized, okay, I can either pay money for the associations or pay money to market my business. So I decided I was going to just market the business, forget all that stuff. So I really had to focus, and I know the exact process to get the gigs, and that's pretty much what we're going to talk about. That's what I'm going to show everybody.
That is so cool, and I have to imagine the speakers that are listening to you right now are saying, I want me some of what Benji is going to be showing us. So I'm really excited because what we're going to see next is going to be all about what you're doing. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's basically how I went from charging $200-$300 to over $10,000 for gigs. So as a matter of fact, let me just plug this in and let's get started.
Alright, so let's just get right into it as far as just the business. Now, I'm basically going to show you how to build the speaking business from scratch, how I went from building it from scratch. But first, I want you to basically prepare for this to be strictly business. This is like a business mode. I'm not here to talk about myself for 20, 40 minutes to an hour. I'm here to just tell you exactly what I'm doing in my business to get booked on corporate stages. So before we continue, I want you to understand that this is stuff that I am currently doing, not stuff that I read about in a book, stuff that I thought about doing, stuff that I got from a million different other people. This is stuff that if you watched me every single day, you would actually see me doing this to get booked on corporate stages, because I don't like talking about theory. This is just the specific things that I do to get the results. So basically, these are the things you have to do to get more gigs at higher prices. And there are essentially three things that I'm going to talk about. Number one is persuading the event planners, attracting them to hire you, and then how I got to a $10,000 price increase, basically where I charged over $10,000 to have me at their event. Now, first, there's these three pictures here. Well, just these pictures, and in just a second, I'm going to tell you why these pictures matter and how I was able to go from doing like these small magic shows to getting on corporate stages of companies like Remax, AAA, Hilton, getting on TV, several different things. But for the longest time, I used to ask myself, what's the difference? Like, what's the difference between the speakers who are getting booked and the speakers who aren't? What's the difference between the guys who are charging over $10,000 and the guys who are making under $1,000 for gigs? Like, I couldn't figure it out. It was like this puzzle to me, and I was getting pissed off because nobody would tell me exactly what to do. Everyone was giving me theory. I wanted specific actions. I literally didn't have any money to actually do things, so I had to do things that didn't cost too much. I didn't have a mentor because I couldn't afford a mentor. I didn't have the money in the first place. If I did have the money, I would have gotten someone because it would have fast-tracked my whole success. And I literally had no visibility. So none of the corporate event planners knew who I was. I literally wasn't on their radar, so I couldn't get booked. And then I eventually figured it out. I realized that in order to get hired, you have to think from an event planner's perspective. It's all about how they think. And I started out as the illusionist, and I got great reactions, but I wanted to do more speaking gigs. I wanted to charge higher prices, and the only problem was that I just couldn't figure out how to get the high paying gigs. The only advice people would give are things like, oh, have a great presentation and add value to your clients and things like that. I mean, it was literally the advice that people was giving. It was more theory than actionable steps. And I think it was because people didn't really know how to do it. They didn't know how to get the gig, so they would give you theory like have a great presentation or add value to your clients, things like that, and they'd give general terms rather than the specifics. So I had to figure it all out myself, and I realized that event planners have this dilemma. They're in this huge dilemma. Basically, the event planners, they need to hire speakers and determine how good you are before watching you speak, but they don't know how good you are until after they've already paid you. That's the huge event planner dilemma that they're having inside their heads. I need to hire a speaker, but I need to know he's good. So how do I know you're good? That's the question they're always asking. They might not ask you that directly, but that's what's going on inside their head. So if you're not getting as many speaking gigs as you want, then the reason is because you're not overcoming this fear that the event planner has when they're hiring you. And that's what you're going to learn how to do, basically how to overcome this event planner dilemma. Basically, the speaker who gets the most gigs is the one who knows how to persuade the event planners. That's what I figured out a long time ago. The key question is, how do you actually do this? Like, how do you actually persuade them to hire you? Basically, I want you to understand that there is a better way to book speaking gigs. It's not as hard as people think. You just have to do things a little differently. Speakers, when I asked them, they used to tell me to join associations, but I realized that very few people in the associations are actually making money. Like, they would rather talk about the theory, and I wanted to produce the results. I wanted to actually get the real corporate gigs. I didn't care about going to meetings with other speakers to talk about, changing the name of my presentation, or to talk about how not to use filler words when I speak and all that stuff. I just wanted to get on corporate stages. That's all I wanted. So here are basically the 3 laws of growing your speaking business. It's pretty simple. The first thing you have to do is you have to celebratize yourself. You have to make yourself look desirable and stand out. Second, you have to multiply what you're doing so you get on more stages. Third, you have to magnify what you're doing so you get higher speaking fees, and you take what you're already doing, but you're just making it 1,000,000 times better. Now, first, I want to talk about a guy named Phil Ivey. If you know anything about poker, if you're a poker player, you know who Phil Ivey is. Phil Ivey is like the Michael Jordan of poker, the Tiger Woods of poker, the Michael Jackson of poker. This dude, he's like on a whole new level of poker. And what happened with Phil Ivey is a long time ago, before he became the Michael Jordan of poker, basically he didn't know anything about poker. I mean, he learned a few things, but he wanted to get good. So the way he got good is when he was 20 years old, he actually got a fake ID. He went to Atlanta City, and he went to the casinos and got in the casinos and started playing. Now, at times, because he wasn't good, he would actually lose all his money, and he didn't have enough money to go back home, so he had to sleep on a bench or somewhere. But basically, he would always get money. He would always invest it and keep learning and learning and learning. But the reason the reason I'm telling you this is because he eventually became literally the best poker player alive right now. And the difference between him and other poker players was feedback. He took action, he got feedback, and he changed what he did next time to make it better. So what people don't understand is that if Phil Ivey hosted like a 3-day seminar and he taught everyone how to play poker and how to play just like him, how to play like the best, then they wouldn't be any step closer to actually winning or being as good as him, because it's much more important to take action on what you know and to get feedback from it and to do it consistently. He didn't just say, oh, I'm going to attend a 3-day seminar and then I'm going to be the best. No, he actually went out, did it every single day for a long time, and of course he lost money at the very beginning because that's the only way he could get better. Basically, knowing something and doing something are worlds apart. You can know something by going to a seminar, by going or reading a book or whatever. You can know something, but doing it is worlds apart. The only way to get good at anything, whether it's a sport or getting booked as a speaker on corporate stages, you have to keep doing the right things. You have to keep doing it. So the more you do something, the better you get at it. It's much better to do something consistently over a period of time rather than attend a 2-day seminar where you forget 90% of the information and you get back home and you just don't even know where to start in the first place. So, let me ask you, do you think that you would be better off if you got information that was delivered to you in bursts of information so you could implement it, get results, implement more, get more results? Just like how Phil Ivey did. He simply just played, kept playing, and he just kept getting results. It's much better if you're taking actions every single day to move you towards your goal. So in order to accomplish something, you have to go through a process where you transform yourself. There's all these guys who talk about get rich quick and, attend my seminar, you're going to be a multimillionaire, all that. The only way it's ever going to happen is if you go through a process. There's no such thing as going to a quick seminar, reading a book, and bam, everything changes. It's all a process. That's what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm going to show you the process of what you should be doing to get booked. And it's also important that, just like what Benjamin Franklin said, never confuse motion with action. So don't think that just because you're doing something, that means you're doing the right things. Most speakers, they don't build their business because they're just not doing the right things. They might be doing things, but they're doing all the wrong things. So it's important that you keep that in mind. So, most speakers, they say that they're serious about building a speaking business, but they're really not. The ones who are serious actually do the work. They take instant action, instant implementation. And I want you to get serious. So don't just watch this and say like, oh, that's cool information. Actually do something about it. If you're not taking notes right now, then you're not serious. This is stuff that I'm actually doing. It's stuff that I did today. It's stuff that I'm going to do tomorrow, a week from now. This isn't theory. This is stuff that if you just saw like a webcam of me working, this is what I would do. The thing is, I started as an illusionist. I was performing in restaurants, and I eventually got corporate gigs, got on TV. That's the basics of what I did. It's not because I went to a million different seminars, they told me what to do and all that stuff. It's because I woke up every single day with specific tasks that needed to get done, and I just did it. And you can do the same thing. So here's what you do. First, you do have to get serious. Tomorrow, it should be a completely new day for you. If you're serious about building your speaking business and getting booked in the corporate market, then you have to invest in yourself and build your business. You have to get serious. That's the very first step. But remember the 3 things I talked about. First, let's talk about celebratizing yourself. Celebratize meaning you have a proof of desire. Are you in demand? Are you an in-demand speaker? That's what celebratizing means. Basically, how do you celebritize your image? Because you have to show that you're an in-demand speaker. You have to show that you're very desirable as a speaker. But how do you actually do this? A lot of people would say, okay, maybe I'll position myself as an expert. That's what you always hear. Oh, expert, I got to be an expert. But they're wrong. That's not what you have to do. And when I realized this, I felt like just slapping myself across the head. But it's so simple. Think about it like this. There's an expert in, let's say, real estate. So there's Expert Face, and he's the expert in real estate. He knows everything. He's written 200 books about real estate, and he is the expert. He knows everything you could know about how to buy a house, how to sell a house, investing, everything. Do you think this expert is making a lot of money, getting a lot of speaking gigs, or do you think Donald Trump is? Of course, Donald Trump is getting way more speaking gigs at higher prices than the Mr. Expert Face could ever do. And the reason is because Donald Trump is obviously a celebrity. Of course, he knows stuff about real estate, but I'm sure there are plenty of people who know more. There are plenty of experts who know way more than Donald Trump, but they're not making nearly as much. It's much more important to position yourself as a celebrity than an expert. Basically, experts, they know more, but celebrities are in much more demand. That's why speakers, they'll write a book and they'll try to position themselves as an expert, but they don't get that many speaking gigs. But when speakers, when they write a book and they maybe get publicity, now they're seen as a celebrity, and now they get more speaking gigs at higher prices. The basics is that on one side, on the expert side, they say, oh, this guy is good, we should have him speak at our event. But on the other side, when you position yourself as a celebrity, they say, wow, this guy's big time, I hope he's available to speak. Do you see the difference? And I hope you really, really see the difference. Basically, when they position you as an expert, well, when you're positioned as an expert, basically you're saying, well, what they're saying is, hey, let's send him an invite to our event. But when you're positioned as a celebrity, they're saying, oh my goodness, I hope I'm invited to his event. That's kind of what they're saying. And when you control the way someone thinks, you control what they think about and how they respond. That's what the celebrity image does for you. In order to create the celebrity perception, you have to change the context. You have to change the context around you as a speaker. All the context, you have to just completely change it to position yourself as a celebrity. But it's great in theory as far as celebrity and all that. Yeah, everyone would like to look like a celebrity, but I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like in terms of action. This picture, take a look at this picture and kind of tell me what you see. What do you see about this picture? Basically, okay, you see me performing something. The girls are obviously impressed. Their mouths are wide open. But what do you actually see about the picture in itself? You'll notice that this is an outdoors event. That this is the type of picture that when I had on my website, I was only charging $200 for an event. Do you see the problem with this picture? Sure, the reactions are great. The girls are impressed. But you see how it's outside. You see how it's like for a sorority. They're obviously a sorority. Look at the way they're dressed. Look at the way I'm dressed. Everything about this picture, it doesn't suggest to you that, hey, he's worth $10,000. When I had pictures like this, it was only a couple $100. So just keep that in mind. That's the context of this picture. Then there's the next picture. What do you see in this picture? Well, in this picture, you obviously see, okay, I'm doing something with the lady there. There's people, I'm on a stage. Okay, when I had these kind of pictures, I was charging anywhere from $500 to $800 for events. But there's still a problem with this picture. The problem is that, okay, it's not a huge crowd. You see the guy there, he's not wearing a suit or anything. This is just casual. So I could only charge $500 to $800 for the events because these are the types of pictures I had on my website. I wasn't really celebratizing myself enough at this point. Then what do you see about this picture? Well, this picture, you see me doing the exact same thing, how my arms are like that, how her arms are like that. Except this time you see it's a bigger crowd. You see there's the guy wearing the suit. It looks more formal. So at this point, when I started adding these pictures and these type of videos to my website, well, now I was charging anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 for events. And at this point I was kind of like, oh hell yeah. I mean, I got kind of big headed, going from $200 up to $3,000. This is where I was like, oh yeah, I'm the bomb. And basically, when I posted these types of pictures and videos, I started changing the context around who I was. But then what I did, I basically upped my game later on, and I started posting even better pictures and videos. This is when I had bigger crowds, and the venue obviously looked bigger. So these pictures, I was charging $5,000 or more. I was getting standing ovations all the time. So I started posting videos and pictures of those. It was basically bigger crowds, and it really had the corporate environment. That's when I started getting up to the $5,000 mark. But then what I did next, it allowed me to increase my fees dramatically, way above $5,000. And can you guess what it was? I mean, just take a second and guess. Basically, I got TV coverage. So I learned how to book myself on TV. And it wasn't just one, it was several different TV things. I was even on the radio a lot. But basically, I started booking myself on different TV channels, whether that was in state, out of state. But when I started booking myself on TV, that's when I really started to celebritize myself, and I really started to charge a whole lot of money for the events. What you need to understand is that everything depends on context. You can change the meaning of something just by changing the context around it. Nobody knew who I was. They've never seen me speak before, but they were willing to pay more than $5,000, more than $10,000 to have me at their event because I just changed the context around me. I celebritized myself. What I was doing when I was charging just a couple $100, it was the same things because I basically created a presentation that was so good that it got a standing ovation like every single time. But the event planners didn't know that. They only knew that after they hired me. The thing is, they had to be convinced before they hired me. So when I changed the context around me, that's when they started to say, oh my goodness, this dude is legit. Look at it from the context of writing a book. I mean, all sorts of speakers want to write a book or have a book. So let's look at it when you change the context of writing a book. Let's say on one hand, there's a book that has 3,668 reviews. It has 4 out of 5 stars. It's a bestseller, an Amazon bestseller, New York Times bestseller, and it's been featured on TV. Do you think that book is good? Or do you think a book that says, we talk about untapped power within you? Well, of course, the book on the left sounds much better. The book that has so many reviews, 4 out of 5 stars, been all kinds of bestsellers, been featured on TV, that book sounds great. But the book on the right, it kind of sounds boring because there's no context around it. Well, this book is actually the same thing, both the left and the right. It's a book that you heard about. It's called The Secret. Basically, this book, it got big when Oprah featured it on her show. The book itself didn't change. The content of the book didn't change. I mean, they didn't just rewrite the book and then all of a sudden Oprah featured it. The content was the exact same. But the context around the book, that's what changed, and that's what allowed them to sell a gang load of books. Basically, you want to ask yourself, how can you change your context? When I was trying to change the context around me to get corporate gigs, I realized that something needed to change. Like, I knew that my presentation was amazing because I always got standing ovations. And the one thing that I kind of realized is that if something isn't working, then something needs to change. So if you're not getting the results that you want, then you have to change what you're doing. And this is an easy concept for everyone to understand, but it's hard to actually implement. Most people, they'll get done watching this and then they'll go back to they'll go back to their Facebook instead of actually doing something that actually improves their business. But you want to ask yourself, how can you change the context, and then you want to start doing it. Here are a couple different ways you can change the context around what you're doing. Let's say you add better pictures and videos of you to your website, so it's bigger crowds, bigger corporate crowds, looks more legit. You can add actually pictures and videos of you on TV, you doing your thing on TV. You can add you in the newspaper, or even have someone following you around with the video testimonials, or you want to record a lot of video testimonials and put those up there, which we'll talk about in a second. You can have the logos of the companies that you've spoken for, that you've done things for. These are the different ways you can change the context around what you're doing, so eventually you'll be able to get hired more and charge a lot more. Now, it doesn't matter what you do if you're not getting seen by the right people. Basically, we're going to talk about how to multiply the stages, how to multiply yourself. I mean, I remember when I was trying to get more gigs and get the high-paying corporate gigs, I was basically stuck. Like, I knew I had a great presentation, I had great videos, I had great everything, but I just wasn't getting the high-paying gigs. And people, they would always ask me to speak at their events for free because they would say, oh, you get exposure, and no matter what, I mean, no matter how great it was, no matter how great I was on stage, or how many people came up to me asking me for a card and wanting to hire me, I still wasn't getting the high-paying gigs and filling up my calendar, and it literally pissed me off. They would always talk about exposure, sounded great, but nothing would really happen. And the reason I wasn't getting the high-paying gigs and getting my calendar full, it was because I wasn't being seen by the right people. You have to know exactly how to multiply your presence so you're visible to the types of people, the types of clients that can afford you. To multiply yourself, you have to be seen by the right people to get more stages. But how do you actually multiply the stages that you're on? How do you actually get more of the right people? First, you have to understand how the event planners hire. Like, how do they hire speakers? What's the process that they go through to actually hire the speakers? First thing they do is they ask themselves, who do I know? That's the very first thing. I mean, think about it. You're an event planner, you're planning an event. You ask yourself, do I know any speakers already? Have I seen any from a previous conference? Do I know any? That's the first step. Then you ask, who do you know? So you're planning the event with someone else. You say, hey, I don't know any speakers. Do you know of anybody? And then that person thinks about speakers that they saw from a conference or somewhere else. The next thing that they do, if they can't think about who they know or who someone else knows, then they go to the internet. Now, there are basically, these are the basic three ways, the three processes that the event planners go through. And there are ways to do the first two, but I want to talk about the internet because that's where most people are at. And I learned how to do the first two systematically, and when you do that, your business basically runs on autopilot. But in order to do the first two, you have to actually get the gig in the first place. And most speakers have a problem getting the gig in the first place, so that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the internet. The first thing that you must do is you must make sure that your internet presence is amazing. Sometimes the people, they'll do the right things, they'll just do it in the wrong order. If you have a horrible website and you try to get speaking engagements, then it's going to be really hard because you're doing things in the wrong order. The first step to getting gigs on the internet is to make sure that your website is just flat out amazing. That event planners, it's like they should have an orgasm when they go to your website. I mean, that's how amazing it should be. I actually do in the Speaking Lifestyle Internet course, the $2,000 program, which is like a 12-week program for building the speaking business from scratch. I literally show everyone how to create a website that instantly attracts event planners. So instead of them contacting you and you trying to sell them on hiring you and try to persuade them on the phone, you do things in a specific way, so by the time they contact you, they're already sold on you. You don't have to sell them because they already want to hire you. They don't say, hey, how much do you cost? They say, hey, are you available for X date? And I hope you see the difference. So the first thing that you have to do is make sure your website is top notch, and that's a whole other video. Then you can actually go to websites like eventbrite.com and several other different websites, which if you're a member of the speakinglifestyle.com, you can find some websites on there. But basically, you go to a website like eventbrite.com, you find the person in charge, who's the person in charge of hiring the speakers, you contact them, and you send them directly to your website. So they're going to see all that stuff, because remember, your website makes people have orgasms. So they're going to see all that stuff, and they're instantly going to say, man, we need to have this speaker at our event. It really was that simple to begin with. Now, I want to point out that the things you do to build your business are different than the things you do to run your business. When people get the private coaching with the internet course that I do, I give them different advice based on where they're at to make sure that they're actually getting to where they want to be as quick as possible. I mean, I'm not very fond of theory, and you shouldn't be either, so it's very important that you learn how to see the action steps that you have to take whenever you're listening to anyone's advice, my advice, anyone's advice. You have to make sure you see the action steps. So if something isn't applicable to your life, then you don't need it. Just get rid of it, stop listening. So make sure you know what steps you need to take and you implement them immediately. With the eventbrite.com thing, maybe you can actually skip that step because that's not where you're at. So let's just skip that step and let's go on to another one. Basically, with the internet, I would actually spend hours and hours contacting event planners, and then I kind of used internet marketing techniques like YouTube. And I didn't have much money to spend on advertising, but I did take $500 and I put it into the internet because I was serious about building my business. The thing is, when you invest money into something, it shows that you're serious about it. There are so many speakers who want to get booked on corporate stages, but they're afraid to actually invest money in the things that make them money. They want to do things for free, and then they wonder why they don't get results. I mean, think about it. I mean, how often have you given someone free advice and they didn't listen? I mean, you gave them all the free advice in the world, they just didn't do it. It was because it was free. I guarantee if you charged them, they would have listened and they would have done whatever you told them to do. But here's the genius part when it comes to actually investing money and things like that. When you know this, you can actually grow your speaking business by doing the same thing to yourself. And what I mean is, I guarantee you that if you were paying $7,000 to listen to this, I guarantee you that you would be taking notes like crazy. You would literally figure out how to get your money's worth. Like, even if all I said was go to eventbrite.com, you would figure out how to get your money's worth if you were paying $7,000 for it. When you put money into something, you're telling yourself how serious you are about your future. This isn't a game to you. It's not something that you dabble in. It's literally your life. You can't be scared to spend money on things that make you money, on things that are going to grow your business. That's what I did. I spent money on the internet. I used it to advertise. I uploaded videos with keywords that the event planners would use. That way they would type in, I don't know, maybe motivational speaker, my video would pop up, they would see the video, they would have an orgasm just like with the website. They'd say, oh my goodness, this dude's amazing, we got to have him at our event. So it's important that you understand this when it comes to spending money. That's what I did, is I simply used that. If you're afraid to spend money, then you won't make money. There are so many speakers who are scared to spend money, and that's why they have a hard time getting gigs. You have to invest money into things that will build your business. Several speakers talk about, oh, I'm going to use social media, blah, blah, blah. But sure, you can use social media. It's like SEO. It's going to take you like 3 years in order for it to do anything. And by that time, you could have already made a ton of money. You also need to ask yourself, do you know how to spend $10,000 or $1,000 or whatever the amount? Do you know how to spend it? So not only should you be okay with spending money on things that make you money, but you also need to know how to spend your money. let's say that there are two speakers, and one speaker, he does everything himself. He's trying to build a speaking business however he can, putting money wherever. He's spending a hundred, or like the Obamacare, he's spending $1 billion on his website, and nothing's really working. But then the other speaker, he's much smarter. He has someone who guides him on how to build a speaking business. So this someone is actually showing him what steps to take and what to ignore. So do you think this second speaker is going to build his speaking business faster? Well, of course he is. It's because the second speaker knows how to spend his money. It's one thing to spend your money, it's another to know how to invest it. If I gave you $500 right now, then do you know how to use it? Can you turn that $500 into $15,000 worth of gigs? If you don't know how to turn $500 into $15,000 worth of gigs, then something in your business needs to change. You need to know how to use money to make the money. But let's get back to the YouTube videos. Remember, I talked about the videos. What types of videos did I use, and what types of videos can you use? Basically, there are 4 types of videos. Number 1, there are the stage clips. These are obviously you on stage doing your thing, speaking, just the simple stage clips that you would think about. The stage clips are really simple. All it is just you literally speaking on stage, and if you can show the size of the crowd, that's even better, versus something like a TED Talk where it's up close. It's much better to show the size of the crowd, because that's what event planners are looking for. They're looking to see that, hey, this guy has done it before. The second type of video is publicity. So do you have any publicity videos? If you don't, you can actually get them. Getting publicity is actually easier than speakers think. It's just about knowing the exact things you should be doing. But if you get the publicity, these are the types of videos that you want to have you on TV. It's much better to be on TV than on the radio and things like that. TV will demonstrate things a million times better. And then the third one are the reviews. So what kind of reviews do you have? And make sure you use the word reviews instead of testimonials when you upload them. It's just a psychological thing. But basically, make sure you really have good reviews, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the fourth one is your demo video. Yes, you do need to have a really good demo video if you want to charge a lot of money in the speaking industry. Your demo video needs to be really, really good, because event planners, they go from one speaker to the next, and they decide within the first few seconds whether or not you're good based on how good your demo is. In fact, most event planners, they don't watch the entire demo. They don't have time to watch the entire demo. They usually look for things that are wrong, and if they find a reason, if they find anything wrong, and they're just going to move on to the next speaker. And having a horrible demo video, it will give them that reason. There's a full video that I made about how to make your demo video in the Speaking Lifestyle member area, which is free to sign up. So just check it out there. It's like a 35-minute video or something. But let's get back to the reviews, because I want to talk about the reviews for a second. Now, I'm going to use the word testimonials, but just so you kind of understand exactly what it is. But as far as when you're talking to other people or when you upload them, you want to use the word reviews instead of testimonials. So basically, there are 4 types of testimonials that you can have. There's the presenter testimonial, there's the audience response testimonial, there's a self-interest testimonial, and then there's a social status testimonial. The presenter testimonial is actually when someone talks about how great you were. So they're basically helping to sell your personality, and it always works best when the person giving the testimony is emotional. They're expressing their emotions. It's like instead of just saying, oh yeah, he was good, they're like, oh my goodness, that was so amazing, and you can like see the emotions in them. So it's much better when they do that. Those are the presenter testimonials.
Saw Benji Bruce and shut up. That was amazing.
Then there's the audience response testimonials. And the audience response testimonials are when they talk about how the audience responded to you as a speaker. Event planners, they want to know how people respond to you as a speaker. So what did the audience do after you spoke? How did they respond? And if you're getting a video testimonial from an event planner and they're saying like, oh, the audience loved it, the audience did, that's the audience response type of testimonial.
This guy wowed our audience. He literally leaves the audience with an amazing standing ovation.
Then there's the self-interest testimonial. The self-interest testimonial, it tells the event planners what they get out of it. Basically, what result will the event planner end up with? This is kind of like someone buying a Lamborghini, and you're basically telling them that what they're really getting is high social status. You're not saying it directly, but that's what you're really saying to them when they're buying a fancy car like a Lamborghini. The self-interest testimony is it's only for the event planner. This is like, oh, as an event planner, well, I'm going to hire this guy, like, am I going to get a promotion by hiring this guy or what? So that's kind of the self-interest testimonial.
But at the end of it all, they all come back and they thanked me for having Benji at my event.
Then there's the social status testimonial. Social status testimonial, it doesn't matter what they say, it's all about who says it. The more known the person is, the better. So it's much better to have a well-known corporate client like Remax or AAA or whatever to say, oh, he was great, instead of like an unknown company. And it's much better to have someone like Oprah to say something rather than a regular person. So with the social status testimonial, the who matters more than the what.
Remax International, one of the vice presidents here. We just saw Benji Bruce. Phenomenal.
So basically, so far I talked about how to persuade the event planners, how to attract them to hire you with the event planners, things like that. Now it's time to talk about magnifying. Magnifying, basically, you take what you've already been doing, you take everything, and you just make it better. The thing is, how do you magnify yourself? I mean, for example, like maybe you know what keywords are producing you the best results on YouTube. So when you magnify, you focus only on those keywords, or I don't know, maybe like instead of focusing on internet marketing, you realize that your time is better spent on the marketing you can do at the gig to get more spin-off gigs, which is something I talk a lot about in the Speaking Lifestyle Internet course, because that spin-off gigs and referrals are where that's like your ultimate goal. It's much better to kind of just get massive referrals and massive spin-offs to where you don't have to do the internet stuff, you don't have to do all the hard work with Eventbrite and all that stuff. You basically get your gig or get your business to the point where you're getting referrals and spin-offs, and that's good enough to make a ton of money in the industry. That's the ultimate place that you want to be. But when you magnify, basically you use what you have to create what you want. And I started taking the things that I was already doing, things like just anything, just how to contact the event planners, things like that, and I made the process even better. And you basically, you have to know how to take simple tasks and you have to leverage them to make them much more effective. This is a picture of me at an event in Finland. And the event was really cool. The whole setup was pretty cool. And the basics of that event was the speaking fee was $12,500. The business airfare was $5,000. They spent, let's just say, $500 on the hotel food, etc., which was really a little more because I was there for like 4 or 5 days. So they basically spent $18,000 to have me there. I was on stage for 15 minutes. And then I was walking around for an hour actually performing. But basically I was only on stage for 15 minutes. I'm showing you this because some speakers, they just don't get it. They don't get that there's an easier way to book speaking gigs if you know what you're doing and you do it consistently. You can take what you're already doing and you can magnify it and book speaking gigs at higher prices. I took what I was already doing. I knew how to find the event planners. I knew what to say. I knew how to negotiate high fees. I knew how to get publicity. I took all of that and I put it into a system to magnify what I was doing and to get more speaking gigs at higher prices. But it's important that you understand at some point you have to stop playing small and start playing big. You have to get out of the kitty box, the kitty sandbox, and you have to start playing with the big boys. What I mean by this is a perfect example is that I hear a lot of speakers, they'll get advice and someone will tell them, oh, you need to film yourself speaking into the camera. And this can be a simple film. You can just have a black backdrop or whatever, and you just talk into the camera and use that as your demo video and things like that. But at some point, you have to start thinking bigger. Instead of a simple footage like that, where it's just you sitting down talking to the camera, you have to have a really good demo video. You have to invest in the things that you know are going to make you money. You have to stop playing small and you have to start playing big. I'm going to show you just a quick clip of my demo video. Sure, I could have just sat down and I could have made a simple video and just said, oh, so here's why I'm a motivational speaker, and yeah, I do this, I inspire people, blah, blah, blah. And I could have done that, but the thing is, when you start playing big, that's when you start making some money. So here's a quick clip of my demo video, and this isn't something that you can just make an iMovie. This is something that I actually hired someone to do. So remember, stop playing small and start playing big. Here's a quick clip of it.
I can't believe how wonderful you are. I've seen you on TV, but nothing like seeing you in person.
Blew the socks off of everybody.
Absolutely amazing. I'm shocked.
Oh my, well how did you do that? No. Now how did you do that?
Jenny?
Are you serious?
Holy cow!
Holy cow.
That was a quick clip of my demo, but as you can see, that's not something that you can just easily make an iMovie. That's something, when you're serious about running a speaking business, you have to get something like that in order to actually charge more and get more gigs. But basically, there are three ways to magnify your speaking business. Number one, you either charge more, two, you get more clients, or three, you just get multiple gigs at once. I want to actually talk about how to charge more, and it's important to understand that to build a speaking business, you need details. To build any business, you need details, not theory. You need the specific details and actions, the action steps that actually get you from one level to the next. So I'm going to give you the details about how to increase your speaking fees, not theory. And yes, there are details about how to do this, and this is just for increasing your speaking fees. There are a million other details that you need to know if you're going to grow your speaking business, but just understand that you should always look for details. Whenever you're listening to anyone for any type of advice, listen to the details, because remember, the general actions, the general theory, that's not stuff that's going to help you at all. You need details, actionable steps. Here are the actionable steps in order to charge more for your speaking gigs. Number one, you have to destroy desperation. I remember talking to a guy who was getting gigs for like around $2,000, and he wanted me to help him get up to $5,000 and more. And he asked me how to do it, and I told him that the first step is he has to destroy the desperation. He can't be scared to lose a gig. You can't be scared to lose money. Whether it's 1 gig, 10 gigs, 20 gigs, you can't be scared to lose the gig. And of course he was like, hey, yeah, but I've got a family, I got to pay the bills and things like that. And I want to make something very clear. Every excuse that you have, whether it's real or not real, it's the very reason why you're not where you want to be at. Every excuse is the reason for holding you back. It doesn't matter if the excuse is real or it's just a limiting belief. All excuses hold you back. The first thing you have to do is you can't be desperate for the gig. If you're charging $2,000, you want to go up to $5,000. If you say, hey, it's going to cost you $5,000, and they say we don't have that, we only have $1,000. You have to deny that gig, because you can't go below you can't go that low. It's just a psychological thing. I don't want to go into detail about it, but If you say $5,000 and they say, oh, we only have $1,000, you have to be willing to let the gig go. And the only way you're going to destroy desperation is to actually save up your money. So stop, cut off your TV and stop spending money by going out to clubs and going out to eat so much. You have to start saving your money, because if you have $100,000 in your bank account and someone says, hey, we can't pay you $10,000 for the speaking gig, we can only give you $10, you're going to say, you know what, forget it, that's all right, go to this guy, because you're not desperate for the money. But if you're desperate for the money and you only have $2 in your bank account and you say, hey, it's going to cost you $10,000, and they say, oh, we can only pay you $100. Well, because you're desperate and because you need the money, you're going to say, all right, I'll do it. So the first step you have to do is destroy that desperation. The second step is you have to enter a new market. You're going to enter a new market because the people who pay $2,000 are completely different than the people who pay $10,000. And it might technically be the corporate market, it might be a corporate speaking gig, but they're two different segments. And the event planners who hire speakers for $10,000, they're almost always, they always play at a different level. They always play at a higher level than the speakers who hire, or than the event planners who hire speakers for like $2,000. So you have to be prepared to drop all your clients who aren't the clients that you want them to be. It's crucial that you understand this, because no matter how many gigs you do at a $2,000 speaking fee, you won't get a $10,000 speaking fee. You can do 1,000,000 gigs at $2,000, but you won't get one $10,000 speaking fee, because it's like a completely different market. And you might be thinking like, oh man, I'm still doing corporate or things like that, and I'm getting seen, I'm getting exposure. But you're not getting exposure to the right people. So you have to enter a new market. The third thing you have to do is you have to increase the social proof that you have. So remember the pictures I showed you and the publicity and all that, the celebratizing yourself. You need to increase your social proof, because if you're going to charge more, then you have to look like you're worth it. So if you want to be a $10,000 speaker, then you have to look like you're already making $10,000 for speaking engagements. And that's where the publicity and all that stuff comes into play. And the fourth thing is you just have to ask for it. Most speakers, they don't get higher prices because they just don't ask for it. Or maybe they negotiate against themselves and things like that. So you really just have to ask for it. So far, you've learned how to attract the event planners, how to persuade them, how I got to the $10,000 price increase. Basically, getting booked in the corporate market it's a very simple process. If you know how to do it, if you know exactly what to do. The steps are easy, you just have to know exactly what they are, and those steps help you out. But the thing is, what if I could show you how to build your speaking business from scratch? Would you want to learn? Or more importantly, would you actually do the work? The thing is, I do offer the course, the Speaking Lifestyle Internet course, where I want to take you through a process, and it's not a normal process. Basically, I don't just give you information and say, here, have at it. I want to tell you exactly what I'm doing in my business, and I guide you step by step. This is the Speaking Lifestyle Internet course, where for 12 weeks, you will be guided on what to do to build your speaking business from scratch. So in week 1, we talk about the types of presentations that event planners book. So what presentations do they actually hire speakers for? How do you choose your presentation? How do you position your presentation in a way that gets them to hire you? And how do you actually write your speech from scratch? Then in week 2, I show you how do you get hired? What do event planners look for in speakers? These are basically the types of things that you need to do before you start doing a lot of the marketing. And then in week 3, this is where we talk about your website. Remember the orgasm website? I show you how to basically build a really good website so that event planners, they're ready to hire you when they contact you, and they're not messing around. They contact you, they're ready to hire you. Then in week 4, I show you how to build your demo video in a way that gets you booked. The demo video really is what can get you booked and get you high fees. Basically, the first 4 weeks, it's all about doing it right the first time. So if you set things up right the first time, then you don't have to go back and waste a lot of money and do it all over again. So the first 4 weeks, it's all about doing it right the first time. In week 5, you're going to basically be setting up your systems. This is where you're going to get the contracts. You're going to get a checklist of questions. That way you can figure out a client's budget. We'll talk about your speaking fee. We're going to set up your funnel. This is basically the things that you need to prepare yourself, so when you start marketing in week 6, when you actually start getting the gigs, you know exactly what to do, and you know all the little details, so you don't come across as an amateur when they actually contact you. And then in week 6, this is where we find to get on stages. This is where you're actually going to find the events. This is where you're going to look up the people to contact. You're going to know exactly what to say. You're going to start building your database by week 6. Basically, getting on stages is actually the easy part as long as you have the first 5 weeks set up. So by week 6, we're going to actually start getting you on the stages. And then in week 7, this is where we're going to start using the internet to actually get you booked. So we're going to get the clients to come to you, where we're going to use the PPC, the pay-per-click, the SEO, social media. This is where we're going to do things on the internet, so clients, you start attracting them to you rather than you having to go to them. Then in week 8, this is going to be the most important week. I'm going to show you how to book multiple speaking gigs at once. So you're going to learn your referral systems. You're going to put your spin-off gigs into play. Basically, I'm going to show you how to use one gig to get several other gigs. This is going to be your bread and butter. Week 8 is really your bread and butter because you're going to apply the 80-20 rule. You're going to start making your speaking business basically run on autopilot by week 8. And by week 8, you should know how to fill up your calendar with speaking engagements. That's what everything's going to be up to for week 8. Then in week 9, we're going to kind of grow everything. So this is where we're going to start creating and selling your products. You're going to learn how to create products for the corporate market, because they actually buy products differently. You're going to learn the different ways to sell the products. I'm going to talk about influence, just creating and selling your speaker products to the corporate market, and they'll buy in bulk as well. Then in week 10, I'm going to show you about publicity. If you can get publicity as a speaker, then your speaking fees are going to just skyrocket. So this is where you're going to do things that are going to get you on TV. And you're going to learn who to talk to, what to say, where to find them. I'm going to show you everything I know about how to get on TV and how I got all my publicity stuff. So that's week 10. In week 11, I'm going to show you how to work with the speaker bureaus. Week 11 is all about getting the speaker bureaus to put you on their website and to get them to recommend you, so they basically book gigs for you. And then week 12, the final week, is all about hiring staff to do the work for you. That way you can have there's different ways to hire people. We'll talk about that. And they're going to do all the things for you, so you can focus more on things that you're doing on stage and your referral and spin-off systems. Basically, this Speaking Lifestyle Internet course, it's almost like coaching in a box, where you will be held accountable to get things done. You're going to be held accountable, so you're going to be sending emails, all that stuff. But this is for speakers who want to get booked in the corporate market. This is not for speakers who want to get the seminar market and do all the seminar stuff. I'm going to show you how I get booked by companies like Remax, AAA, Hilton, Intel, Best Buy. I'm going to show you how I got booked by those companies in the corporate market. This is what this is for, and we're going to do it step by step. You're going to be guided on how I built my business and what I'm doing currently in my business. This is literally the most in-depth speaker training course on how to get booked in the corporate market ever. This is more than just information. This is all about following along so you can get results consistently. So right now, the registration is open. There's a link on this page, so make sure you click that link, sign up right now. You're going to register your username and password, and every week you're going to get new videos, audios, resources, and tasks, more importantly tasks, that are going to help you build your speaking business. So go ahead, just register now. The registration is open. Register now. If it's not open, then just sign up and just wait a little bit, and we'll open it back up eventually.
So that's pretty much the basics of getting booked in the corporate market. So, and
that was amazing. That was so amazing. I am sure that our listeners are going to want to now know, if they didn't take notes, how do they go and find out now how to get in touch with you and get your program? So there's going to be a link right below here, right?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's the speakinglifestyle.com/SLIC. for the Speaking Lifestyle Internet course. I thought it was kind of slick to do that. So, but yeah, just go to the link down below. It's somewhere on this page, and go there and get it now. And by the way, if anyone actually needs help during the course, it is 90 days. It's 12 weeks. If anyone needs help, just send me an email at benji@benjibruce.com. And if you need any help with anything, any questions, just send me an email. But yeah, just go ahead, just get it now, sign up, and let's get on with it.
And for all of our listeners, I thoroughly endorse this program. Benji is the real deal. And I know that you're going to learn so much, and you will be on stages speaking just like Benji is. So just take action. For the most of us, it's just a matter of taking that first step. So take that first step, click on the link, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, Benji.